A little bit of an offbeat question here, Steve. I'm wondering how you felt as you watched, or if you've watched any of the videos of frontline workers starting to get the COVID-19 vaccination after everything we as a country and the city has been through.
I haven't seen them. Can you tell me, elaborate a little bit?
Well, it's just, the vaccine is finally in the United States, and the frontline workers are kind of the first people that are able to get it. And so after them being the people who have, kind of put themselves on the line every day to try to help people.
Yeah. It's monumental.
Kind of what's
That's a big win to start that process and get us to a safer world. And it's tricky times, and it's been a long kind of whatever it's been. I mean, this virus started over a year ago, I think, for sure in China. So tough year for everyone, and to get the virus to the frontline workers is really important. And obviously it's the first step for recovery.
Brian Lewis, New York Post.
Hey, Steve. I'm curious with the condensed schedule that everybody's going to be going through. How do you weigh trying to basically build chemistry with new coach, new offense, new defense, new lineup, but also trying to make sure that you rest players when needed, and you have obviously 2 stars coming off major injuries, so presumably they'll get their days here and there. How do you weigh those 2 things?
It's going to be a challenge. I think one of the ingredients that we haven't necessarily considered, though, is just also the guys bonding, off the court, finding that respect and bond and connectivity as people. I think if you feel the group come together off the court, there won't be such a gap on the court, regardless of how the season shakes out. But, all teams are going to face some of that, even the teams that are running it back for the 3rd, 4th, 5th year. It's going to be a tricky season with COVID protocols, condensed schedule, injuries. Everyone's going to deal with some of that. So, you do the best you can. You try to keep people healthy first and foremost, and then you try to find that cohesion and collective experience second. So they're both priorities, but they're both a little antithesis to one another. So we have to be very careful, at the same time thoughtful about how, when, why. And then that last ingredient I mentioned is if the guys really buy in and understand that this is going to be a trying season, and they got to connect as people off the floor as well to try to make this experience as enjoyable as possible, and to make as many connections as possible, rather than, just being pieces of a puzzle in their own silos.
Michael Grady, Yes Network.
Coach, will it be all hands on deck tomorrow, and how will you assess minutes allocation?
Yeah, I think we're going to take another step towards a regular game, quote unquote regular game, by playing some more regular type minutes, some more, look at a little bit deeper at our minutes and rotations, and try to emulate what it'll be like Tuesday against the Warriors.
Alex Schiffer, The Athletic.
Hey, Steve, you've said how a lot of your coaching philosophies are kind of still to be determined and being ironed out, but something you liked as a player with Mike in Phoenix was how he knew how to let the system evolve on its own and let you guys as players kind of go free. I guess, how did that work on your end as a player when you kind of decided it was time to go off script maybe, and in sync with Mike kind of letting the system develop on its own as you try to work on that now on the coaching side?
Well, we want to give our players a template, and then we want to let them discover how it fits for them individually and how they can make connections with each other. And then we rein them in and we refine it and we add something new, and then we let them go with it, and repeat that process throughout the season. So we'll be implementing more structured stuff, more, diagram stuff, but we want an element of our play to be random within a template, and learn to play in an unpredictable way where they're reading and reacting and playing the game and being creative and showing cohesion.
Greg Logan, Newsday.
That feeds perfectly into my question. Can you just describe within that template and the freedom that you're giving everybody, what is the dialogue like on a daily basis with KD and Kyrie in particular, and how would you describe their input?
They both have such high basketball IQs that, a lot of it is body language, is understanding, is processing as they go. So they're definitely two guys that have a great relationship and will talk things through, as will the rest of the team. But they also, some of it is just by experiencing it together and recognizing trial and error, and that this is a process to form cohesion and understanding. So, that's part of the, we have a structure and then we have freedom. And, part of that is problem solving. And you want them to solve some of their own problems. You don't want them to look over to you to solve problems. You want them to be, especially those two, highly creative, skilled, competitive players. And so we're trying to give that right balance of their freedom within our confines, so that our team plays great basketball.
Christian Winfield, New York Daily News.
Hey, Coach, kind of piggybacking off of the two previous questions, but in terms of what it is that you want to implement into the offense and kind of putting your stamp on the offense, obviously you don't want to overload the guys too much with too many different things at one time, especially so early. So are there certain benchmarks that you're looking for from the team before you know, okay, now I can hit them with a little bit more, I can weave in this wrinkle, or is it just you need to watch them play and have X amount of time go by before you can start hitting them with new stuff?
It's a good question. I mean, I think some of it is left to be seen. You can have a methodology, but if they're not ready to implement the next step in that process, then it's probably, not right to go there. So some of it is on feel and understanding and figuring out where the team's at and how it's working. But, our kind of, the North Star in that respect is efficiency. Are we efficient? Are we creating good shots? Are we making them? Are we difficult to defend? Are we making multiple people a threat? That, all those markers kind of dictate where we are and what we need to refine and what we need to scrap or implement, all those things. So it's a process. There's a method to it, but at the same time, there has to be a feel. You're trying to reach a balance between art and science there, I think, as well.
Last question for Coach. We'll go to Steve Lichtenstein, WFAN.
Hi, Steve. I remember back when Jason Kidd was in your seat, and he was just coming out of retirement to coach from playing. But he talked about the biggest challenge being learning how to watch the game, the sight line and the peripheral vision. I was just curious, when you coached your first game, if you had that adjustment to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably an adjustment, just getting used to that vantage point. I think for me, watching film was a big adjustment. You start to train yourself to watch in an analytical way. And at first, I'd catch myself when I'm watching film, months ago, watching as a fan, and then rewinding 3 possessions because I wasn't like honing in on it. And so just getting used to hitting that space bar and pausing multiple times each possession to see the positions and angles and spacing and all that. So that for me was more of a leap that, it just takes an adaptation to get used to watching in that respect. Some of it you just catch because you've played for so long and you see it right away. But sometimes you need to, most of the time you need to rewind or pause and take stock of where all 10 players are. So that was more of an adjustment for me than the feeling I had on the sidelines. But the rhythm of the game as a coach is different, and that will take time, to figure out, just who I am as a coach, my personality is, how I can help facilitate our team's best effort and most efficient performance, and try to be as small and inconsequential a figure over there as possible, and let these guys prepare them as well as you can and make the adjustments you need to make, but put them in a position to succeed.